Okay, let's unpack this. Our digital lives, they're powered by this, well, invisible flow of information.
Right.
Think of it like a massive highway system, maybe? But instead of cars, it's data packets just zipping around all over the place.
Constantly.
Yeah, constantly. We use these networks for everything, streaming movies, sending emails, all that stuff, but actually seeing what's happening underneath it all,
Uh-huh.
understanding the real conversations going on, that's a pretty rare skill and a powerful one.
It really is.
So today we're doing a deep dive into Wireshark. It's a network protocol analyzer, basically a tool that lets you peek into those digital conversations happening right there on your network.
Yeah.
It gives you this incredible visibility, shows you the hidden dynamics.
And what's fascinating here is understanding this packet level stuff isn't just for like the super niche network engineers anymore.
Okay.
It's become, well, absolutely crucial for a whole range of roles.
Yeah.
We're talking cybersecurity, SOC analysis, cloud networking, even, frontline IT support.
Really, even IT support.
Oh, yeah. This kind of insight, it's about solving real-world problems. It could be debugging why an app feels slow or pinpointing some suspicious activity maybe, or even just making sure your network is actually doing what you think it's doing, validating things.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So our mission today, then, is to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge about Wireshark, guided by, common questions people have, real-world troubleshooting stuff.
Perfect.
And by the end of this, you listening should have a kind of shortcut to being pretty well informed about what is, honestly, a critical network analysis tool. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
So first off, let's pin down Wireshark's core purpose. We called it a network protocol analyzer, but what does that actually mean for someone trying to get the basic idea?
Yeah, good question. Essentially, Wireshark is built to capture and inspect live packet data straight from your network interface.
Okay.
You can kind of think of it as a specialized microscope, maybe, but for your network traffic.
I like that. A microscope for traffic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And its main uses are pretty broad. It's indispensable for troubleshooting network problems. That's a big one. It also lets you analyze specific communication protocols in really fine detail, almost forensic detail.
Right.
It's a key tool for spotting security threats, and it's fantastic for validating network configurations, especially for those really vital services like DNS, DHCP, and TLS encryption.
Okay, so those are the core functions, but where does Wireshark really shine? Can you give us some practical scenarios where it's the go-to solution for network folks?
Absolutely. You'll see it pop up everywhere, honestly.
Yeah.
For instance, if you're fighting with annoying latency issues, slow connections.
Everyone hates those.
Right. Wireshark can show you precisely where that delay is happening. It's also critical for just verifying the basic TCP handshakes, the things that start almost every connection.
The SYN, ACK thing.
That's the one, making sure they complete properly.
Right.
And if you're seeing poor performance, it's often the first place you look for packet drops or retransmissions. They're usually the culprits.
Okay.
And for debugging specific services, whether it's DNS not resolving names or HTTP web connections failing or, SSL TLS certificate problems causing headaches, Wireshark gives you that super granular view you need.
And security, you mentioned that too.
Yeah, on the security side, it's your friend for finding nasty stuff like ARP spoofing. That's where someone tries to impersonate another device on your network. Or even subtle port scanning attempts trying to find open doors. Wireshark helps you see that.
All right, so you've convinced me I want this visibility. How do you actually start capturing packets? Is it complicated or is it pretty straightforward?
It's actually quite straightforward to get rolling. You open up Wireshark, then you just need to select the right network interface.
Okay. Like my Wi-Fi card or the Ethernet port.
Exactly. Whichever one the traffic you care about is flowing through. Once you've picked the right one, you just click the Start Capture button.
Yeah.
It's usually pretty obvious. It looks like a shark fin.
The shark fin. Okay, I like that visual cue. Easy to remember.
Halfway.
Now, once you're capturing, or maybe even before you start, I hear there's this really crucial difference between capture filters and display filters. Can you break that down? Why does it matter so much?
Oh, absolutely. Vital distinction. Yeah. You really need to get this one. Think of it like this. Capture filters. They get applied before packets are even saved to your computer.
Before anything gets recorded.
Right. Their whole purpose is to dramatically cut down the amount of data Wireshark even collects in the first place.
Ah, okay.
So, for example, if you only care about web traffic, say HTTPS, you might use a capture filter like TCP port 443. That tells Wireshark, look, Only grab packets going to or coming from port 443. Ignore everything else. You don't even save the other stuff.
So it's like telling a delivery driver, only pick up packages addressed to me. Don't bother bringing the entire mail truck.
Exactly. Perfect analogy. You're saving on storage space, processing power later on.
Makes sense. So what about display filters then?
Right. Display filters are different. They get applied after you've already captured everything or, well, everything that got past your capture filter if you use one.
Ah, so you apply them to the data you already have.
Precisely. This gives you way more flexibility because you're working with data that's already saved. You can try out complex logic, like ip.adder equals 10.0.0.1 and then TCP.
Okay.
That lets you narrow down what you're seeing in the captured data without needing to capture all over again.
Okay.
You can change them instantly, experiment, refine your view as you go. Much more interactive.
That flexibility does sound incredibly powerful. Could you give us maybe a few basic filtering examples, just some fundamental patterns someone could use right away to start exploring?
Sure thing. And the beauty isn't really memorizing tons of filters, but understanding the pattern.
Yeah.
It's usually protocol.field equals value, something like that.
Okay.
So for instance, to see all TCP packets, the backbone of reliable connections, you'd literally just type TCP. Simple.
TCP. Got it.
If you wanted to focus on a specific TCP port, like we said, maybe HTTPS traffic, you'd use TCP.port equals 443.
Right. TCP.port.
For traffic involving one specific IP address, it's as easy as ip.adder equals 192.168.1.5.
IP.adder.
Okay. And if you're looking for communication going to or from a specific host, maybe by its name, you can often use hostexample.com.
Nice.
These are like your basic building blocks. You can then combine them with and or to get more specific.
Okay, that gives us the power to sift through potentially mountains of data. Now that we know how to look, let's turn to one of the most common battlegrounds, TCT issues.
Yes, TCP.
The cornerstone is that TCP three-way handshake, right? How does Wireshark help us understand what's going on in that crucial first step?
Yeah, the three-way handshake is absolutely fundamental. It's how two devices agree to talk reliably before they send any real data. You're looking for that classic sequence, SYN, SYN, ACK, ACK.
Right, the can we talk? Yes, okay.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. And Wireshark makes it easy to spot. You can filter specifically for that initial SYN packet using tcp.flags.plan equals 1 and then tcp.flags.a equals 0, 0.
Okay.
If you don't see that sequence complete cleanly, or if there's a big delay between the steps, you've immediately found a potential connection problem right at the start.
And what about those really frustrating issues like retransmissions or packet loss? They always seem to be behind slow performance. How do we spot those in Wireshark?
Wireshark is brilliant for this because it can actually flag these issues for you directly. There's a display filter, tcp.analysis.retransmission.
tcp.analysis.retransmission.
If you apply that, Wireshark will highlight the packets it thinks are retransmissions. You should look in the info column for phrases like TCP retransmission or maybe TCP spurious retransmission or TCP fast retransmission.
What do those mean, essentially? They all mean that data had to be sent again, which usually points to a problem like network congestion, maybe a flaky connection somewhere. It's like having to repeat yourself constantly in a noisy room, right? It just slows everything down.
Definitely.
And similarly, for slightly more subtle things, like duplicate ACKs, that's the receiver asking for the same piece of data again, or out-of-order packets arriving in the wrong sequence. Wireshark has specific filters for those too. tcp.analysis.duplicateACK and tcp.analysis.out-of-order. They signal problems with how data is being delivered and acknowledged, often leading back to retransmissions eventually.
So, okay, we've all been there. A slow application. It feels like the most common network problem anyone experiences. How do you actually diagnose that with Wireshark? Where do you start?
Yeah, this is where Wireshark really shows its power for diagnosis. When an app is slow, you use Wireshark to check several key things.
Okay, like what?
First, check that TCP three-way handshake time. If it takes ages just to establish the connection, the whole experience will feel sluggish from the start.
Makes sense.
Second, you look for signs of congestion or receiver issues. Are there lots of retransmissions? Are you seeing high TCP window sizes that suddenly drop? Or worse, are you seeing zero window situations?
Zero window, what's that?
You can filter for it with tcp.windowsize equals 0, 0. A zero window means the receiving end is basically saying, stop, I'm full. I can't take any more data right now.
Ah, like a full bucket under a fire hose.
Exactly. The sender has to stop transmitting. It creates this massive pause. absolutely kills performance.
Wow, okay. What else?
Third, check for DNS delays. Filter for DNS traffic. Is it taking a long time to look up the server name? Even a few hundred milliseconds delay here can make things feel slow.
Right, because nothing happens until DNS resolves.
Not precisely.
Yeah.
And finally, you filter by the actual application protocol itself, like filter for HTTP or SSL if it's encrypted, or maybe RPC for some backend stuff. See if the delay is in the application's own back and forth chatter. Is the server just slow to respond?
Gotcha. So you peel back the layers.
Exactly. Network, DNS, application layer.
Okay, so beyond general TCP, what about problems with specific protocols like DNS or SSL/TLS? They're so critical for just about everything online.
Yeah, definitely. For DNS issues, filtering with just DNs shows you all the DNS query and response traffic. Then you look for the telltale signs. Are response times really high? Are you seeing errors like NX domain? That means non-existent domain. The name you asked for just doesn't exist.
Okay.
Or are you just seeing queries go out with no response coming back at all? Any of those will stop you from getting where you want to go online.
Right. And SSL/TLS, those certificate errors and stuff.
Yep. Filter with TLS, that's the modern name for SSL mostly. You'll want to watch out for things like TLS handshake failures, the initial secure negotiation failing.
Okay.
Also, certificate mismatches, where the certificate event doesn't match the site you thought you were connecting to, or even version mismatches. Maybe your browser wants TLS 1.3, but the server only supports an old, insecure version like SSL v3. These often show up as those scary browser warnings or just failed connections.
And what about voice over IP, VoIP IP calls? That seems notoriously sensitive to network quality.
Oh, it really is. Jitter and packet loss kill voice quality. For VoIP, you typically start by filtering with RTP SIP. RTP carries the actual voice data, SIP handles the call setup.
Okay.
But Wireshark also has some great built-in tools specifically for this. Under the telephony menu, you'll find things like VoIP calls or RTP streams.
Specialized tools.
Yeah, and these can analyze the streams and give you really useful metrics. Things like MOS, the mean opinion score, basically a rating of perceived call quality.
Like 1 to 5 stars.
Sort of, yeah. And it also calculates jitter, which is the variation in packet arrival times, and packet loss, all critical for good voice quality.
This is getting really deep into the details. Now, I've heard it might even be possible to decode HTTPS traffic sometimes. Is that actually true, given everything's encrypted now?
Yes, it is possible, but with a huge asterisk. It's typically only feasible in like controlled lab or test environments where you have the necessary permissions and crucially the keys.
Ah, the keys. That's the catch.
That's the catch. If you have the server's private key, or sometimes what are called session secrets, you can actually configure Wireshark to use them.
How?
You go into Wireshark's preferences, then find protocols, then look for TLS. There's a place there to add these keys.
Okay.
If you provide the right keys, Wireshark can then decrypt that HTTPS traffic and show you the actual application data inside the HTTP requests and responses, for example. Invaluable for debugging encrypted applications when you can do it.
Wow. Okay, so building on that idea of seeing inside, what's the difference between using follow TCP stream versus follow SSL TLS stream in Wireshark? They sound kind of similar.
They do sound similar, but they serve different purposes. It's an important distinction. Follow TCP stream is super useful. It takes all the packets that make up a single TCP conversation, reconstructs the application data payload in the order it was sent.
So you see the raw data, like the HTTP request itself.
Exactly. You see the full back and forth, like an HTTP JD2 request and the server's HTML response or an FTP file transfer, all reassembled, even if it was fragmented across many packets. It shows you the raw conversation over TCP.
Okay. And follow SSL TLS stream.
That one only works if you've successfully provided the decryption keys we just talked about.
Requires the keys.
Right. If you provided the keys and Wireshark can decrypt the session, then follow SSL TLS stream. We'll show you the decrypted application data that was originally inside the encrypted TLS tunnel. So one shows the raw transport stream, the other shows the decrypted application content if possible.
Got it. That makes sense. We've covered a lot on troubleshooting. Let's shift gears slightly towards security. How does Wireshark help us spot something malicious that might be hiding in all that traffic?
Yeah, it's a really indispensable tool for security analysis too. Take something like ARP spoofing, for instance.
What's that again, quickly?
That's basically where an attacker on your local network tries to trick other devices into thinking their computer is the router, or maybe that their computer is your computer, so they can intercept traffic.
Nasty. How do you spot it?
You'd filter with just ARP. ARP is the protocol used for mapping IP addresses to physical MC addresses on a local network.
Okay.
What you look for are the red flags. or you see multiple different ARP replies claiming the same IP address but coming from different MC addresses, that's a huge warning sign.
Someone's lying about who has that IP.
Exactly. Or sometimes just an unusually high volume of ARP traffic overall can indicate something fishy is going on, maybe an ARP flood attack.
Okay. And what about port scanning? Someone trying to find open services, open doors on the network.
Yep, another common recon technique. Wireshark can help detect that by looking for lots of connection attempts, specifically SYN packets, going to lots of different ports, often from the same source IP.
How do you filter for that?
You'd use that filter we mentioned earlier, tcp.flags.syn equal none, utp.flags.ac equals 0-zik. This shows you just the initial connection requests. If you see one IP address sending out a whole bunch of these SYNs to various ports on one or more of your machines, and most of them aren't getting answered or being rejected, that's highly suspicious. It looks like someone's systematically checking all your doors and windows.
Rattling the doorknobs, basically.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
And what about finding signs of maybe more advanced threats, like actual malware infections or intrusion attempts? What kinds of clues would you look for in a Wireshark capture?
For malware or active intrusions, you're generally looking for anomalies, things that seem out of place.
Like what sort of things?
Well, maybe traffic going to unusual destinations. You might use external tools like GeoIP lookups or IP reputation databases to check if an IP address your machine is talking to is known to be malicious or located somewhere unexpected.
Also, look for abnormal port usage. Is a process that normally does web browsing suddenly talking on, I don't know, an IRC port? That could be suspicious. Look for suspicious DNS lookups. Are your machines trying to resolve domain names that look randomly generated or are known to be associated with malware command and control servers?
Right.
Or maybe signs of large data exfiltration, unexpectedly large uploads going out to external addresses. That could be someone trying to steal data. Wireshark provides the raw evidence for all this, letting you investigate even if your dedicated security tools, like an IDS, haven't flagged it yet.
It gives you the ground truth, the actual packets.
Exactly, the definitive proof.
So finally, let's say you've captured all this incredibly valuable information, you found the problem or the suspicious activity. How do you get it out of Wireshark? I assume you'd want to save it, maybe share it with colleagues or a vendor, or perhaps analyze it later.
Yeah, absolutely. Sharing captures or saving them for later is really common and important. Exporting the packets is very straightforward.
How do you do it? You just go up to the File menu and then choose Export Specified Packets.
Okay.
Wireshark lets you choose which packets you want to export, maybe just the ones currently displayed by your filter or a specific range. And then you can save them in several formats.
What are the common formats?
The most common is .pcap or .pcapng. That's the standard format that Wireshark itself uses, and lots of other network analysis tools understand it too.
Right, the native format.
Exactly. But you can also export the packet summary as plain.txt if you just want a text list, or even as .csv, separated values, which you could then easily pull into a spreadsheet for further number crunching or graphing.
Useful for reports or documentation?
Definitely. Very useful for sharing with a vendor if you need support, or escalating an issue to a senior team member. They can then open the .pcap file in their own Wireshark and see exactly what you saw.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So what does this all mean for us then? We've really journeyed deep into the network traffic here.
We certainly have.
From the basics of just capturing and filtering, all the way to diagnosing these really complex performance issues and even spotting security threats hiding in the data, you've really shown how understanding these tiny granular details can fundamentally change your ability to solve network mysteries.
And if we sort of connect this to the bigger picture, the importance of being able to do this kind of packet-level analysis, it just keeps growing, doesn't it?
Seems like it.
I mean, in this incredibly interconnected world we live in, the ability to actually see and properly interpret all this digital chatter, it's just an invaluable skill for professionals across so many different tech fields now.
Yeah.
And this kind of knowledge, it isn't just, theoretical stuff from a textbook. It's about practical problem solving every day. It's about proactive defense, making sure our digital highways are running smoothly, securely.
Really well put. So thinking about all these conversations happening across our networks, every single second, it makes you wonder, what other hidden insights are still out there just waiting to be uncovered in that traffic? And how might really listening to them change the way you understand technology itself?